And we are waiting for the president to begin speaking. A large crowd assembled there. This was initially supposed to be just the poll reporters that were witnessing the president's remarks. Now it is the entire press corps. We don't yet know for sure if he'll be taking questions, but it seems likelier than not. Let's get more on all of this. Ian Bremmer is here. He is Eurasia Group and GZero Media President Ian Bremmer. Thank you for being here, Ian.
Sure.
You guys just released your 10 risks for 2020. You did. And you also released some red herrings, things that maybe people thought were a risk that you don't think is as big a risk. One of them is a war with Iran.
Yes.
And now,
shocking.
Yes, and now it seems like perhaps, at least, I mean, it's awfully early in 2020, but it seems like maybe that red herring is being borne out.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that once the decision was made to assassinate Qasem Soleimani, I changed my New Year's resolution to trying to help talk people off the ledge. And say that World War III is not imminent, right? I mean, it is very clear that Trump has not wanted war with Iran. And if he had wanted to wag the dog, he had had plenty of opportunities to do so. Part of the reason that this was getting dangerous was precisely because the Iranian economy was imploding, but they had no sense of what the red lines were. They were taking all of these incremental steps. They were hitting tankers, they captured one, they were hitting drones, the Global Hawk, $130 million piece of equipment knocked out of the sky. They're showing it off, right, in Tehran, bringing in the school kids to check. And then they hit the Saudis. And I mean, any other American president, you hit Saudi Arabia, most important oil processing facility in the world, and he does nothing? Any other president would have done something, right? And so clearly the Iranians are feeling like this process of incremental escalation is working for them. In fact, the Saudis started to negotiate. The Saudis, they actually had a prisoner exchange after that. So if you're Iran, if you're advising the Iranians, you're saying, okay, let's keep doing this because Trump talks big, he's hurting our economy. There's no other way to make him take us seriously other than showing that we're really going to go down this road. So they do. And what do? They hit Baghdad. They hit our embassy, the most expensive, largest U.S. embassy in the world. They hit Kirkuk, our base. They kill an American. They injure some soldiers. And then the Supreme Leader does perhaps the ultimate thing for Trump. He goes on Twitter and he says, the Americans can't do a damn thing about it, right? And Trump shows them that's the red line. Now, showing them that's the red line and taking out Soleimani, finally, the Iranians have some communication from the U.S. We know what you'll tolerate, what you won't tolerate. And given the massive power imbalances with the U.S. and Iran, that's actually a de-escalatory step.
So what happens next?
So what happens next is, well, the Iranians are backing down. They're backing down in a huge way. I mean, they've hit the United States. They told Baghdad in advance what they were going to do. They clearly did that with the intention of not having American casualties, and quite fortunately, there haven't been. The Iranian foreign minister came out publicly and said, we're going to hit you harder if you do anything to us. We just killed the head of their military. I mean, like, what else are we going to do to them, right? So this is obviously the Iranians suing for peace, saying, okay, we really don't want to further escalate. We're going to behave now. I'd be stunned if the Iranians engaged in direct attacks against the United States in the near future. Now, they have said they're leaving the nuclear deal. But even there, the headlines are worse than the reality. They're still adhering to the plutonium portions of the deal. They're still adhering to the inspections portion of the deal. They are enriching more uranium. They're doing so incrementally. Everything about what the Iranians are now showing is they'd like to figure out a way to de-escalate.
What I hear you saying is that the president did the right thing.
Look, if you ask me, do I think it was right for the United States to unilaterally withdraw from the Iranian nuclear deal, which actually set off this escalation? The answer is no. I don't support that policy. If you ask, once he did that, and given all of the escalation we saw from Iran, was it right to hit them back hard at that point? The answer is yes. Now, I mean, it's more nuanced than, do I love Trump or no? I'm personally not emotionally damaged by Trump. Right? My analysis doesn't come from, I hate this man. And I think it's important to be able to say that because so much of what I've heard this weekend doesn't seem rational, right? It doesn't seem to recognize that actually if you're the president of the world's most powerful country, you can miscalculate more. That's reality. It's not fair, but it's reality, right? And so Trump miscalculates a lot. But it's not just that he's lucky. You are luckier intrinsically when you're this powerful. You know, it's like you're luckier intrinsically when your parents have enough money to get you into Harvard, right? I mean, you're just luckier. You know, that's the way it goes.
Ian, you said you'd be stunned if there were further direct
Iranian attacks on
Yes.
U.S. personnel or assets.
Yeah.
What about asymmetrical warfare, terrorism, something like that? Do you think the Iranians are done, or is there more coming?
Well, the Iranians are not done. This is not mission accomplished. And if Trump goes on stage and actually rolls that out, that would be a big mistake, right? Part of the reason is because the Iranians don't have complete control over all of these proxies. That's even more true now that Soleimani is dead. Right? I mean, this guy was a singular figure, and his charisma and his network in building up these proxies and getting them to follow him is not going to be replaced easily, despite the fact they have someone else in the position. So, I mean, if you ask me, do I believe that there could be rogue forces among proxies that will take a whack at American assets in the region? The answer is certainly yes. We've seen rocket attacks against American bases in Iraq, for example, consistently over the past few months. I doubt that that's all going to stop. That's very different from saying, are we going to be at war with the Iranians? So looking forward in 2020, I believe the likelihood of negotiations and diplomacy with Iran is actually greater than the likelihood of war with Iran. It's going to be hard to get to negotiations, but if you wanted to make that bet, you'd clearly make the bet towards
What about a terrorist the likelihood of planning a terrorist attack?
My concerns about terrorism come largely not from the Shia, but from the Sunni. The fact that the United States now has fewer forces at its disposition to engage in intelligence and counterstrikes against terrorists in Iraq and in Syria. We've suspended those operations in Iraq, and if we are forced to take our troops out of Iraq, and again, we're not there yet, there is only a caretaker government in Iraq. We sent a letter, we rescinded it, it's not a real letter apparently. All of that tells me that sure, I mean, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, other such organizations are going to regroup, they're going to get stronger. I would also say that to the extent that they pose a danger and a threat, they are primarily a threat on the ground in the region. They are secondarily a threat to our allies in Europe, and they are then marginally a threat to the United States. Trump has said that publicly when he said, why do we care if ISIS forces escape from Syria? They're just going to go to Europe. I wish he hadn't said that. I think it's a horrible thing to do to American allies. It is also reality, and so we should admit that too.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.